Good evening and welcome to the Boston College webinar. The theme of tonight's session is traditions at Boston College. I believe the full title of the session is actually From Welcome Week to Senior Week, students talking about the importance of traditions at BC. So we're really grateful that you're tuning in to learn a little bit more about Boston College. And I sort of wanted to start there by just, first of all, thanking you for your interest in Boston College. We know that you have a lot of options out there in this college search process, and we're grateful that Boston College is on that list of schools that you're considering. Um, and I know how difficult this college search process is for you right now. This college search process is difficult even under the most ordinary of circumstances. So I can only imagine how much more challenging it's made by the current circumstances that we're all living in. We all wish that we were on campus for this session right now, showing you the beautiful campus that we have. Some people call it wicked nice where we're from. And we wish we could show that off to you. But, unfortunately, the reality is that we need to be doing this from our homes. Our students are on campus. You can sort of see where they are now. But unfortunately, we're all not able to be on campus to show it off right now. But the other reality is that we know this college search process goes on because we know that so many of you out there are hopeful that next September you will be landing at some really great schools and places that you're really excited to start your college careers at. So it's our job to try to give you as much information as possible in whatever way we can and in whatever way is safe to do so, to help you feel really good about that search and as good as possible about that decision. So, we hope that tonight's session on Boston College and specifically on traditions at Boston College will be a lot of fun for you, and we'll give you some really great insight into what it's like to spend 4 years on BC's campus. So I've brought along some help to do that. So you'll see that I'm joined by 4 current undergraduate students here, actually more specifically, 4 seniors at Boston College who are in their final year at BC and who have experienced many of the wonderful traditions on BC's campus. And I know they're excited to share many of those with you this evening. I think that my advice for any college search, any college tour that you go on, any visits that you do is to try to talk to and hear from as many current students as possible. I think a lot of people go on these college tours and visits and they think that the most important person to hear from is the admission counselor. And as flattered as I am by that, I don't necessarily think that that's always the right mindset to approach these visits with. Because if you come to Boston College, you're not going to be walking around in my shoes for 4 years, right? The shoes of an administrator. You're going to be walking around in the shoes of these current undergraduate students. So my advice to you would be to really listen to them and pick their brains and try to just interact with as many students as you possibly can on these visits. So how this format will be structured is that I will have the students introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they do at Boston College, and then maybe dive into some of their favorite traditions on campus, and they can tell you a little bit about what those look like. And then I'll moderate a question and answer session with our students to try to dive a little bit deeper and pick into some of those other traditions that they didn't necessarily talk about in their introductions. Boston College is a place that I think is truly rich with traditions, perhaps more so than other colleges that I've spent time on their campus or interacted with. I think the idea of traditions is really a theme at Boston College and really something that sort of runs through students' 4 years here. So during this session, not only will we talk about those traditions, but maybe we'll sort of get into the idea of why that's the case, that traditions are so important at Boston College and why they're such an integral part of so many students' lives here. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our students now. Like I said, they're the real experts today. So I'm going to turn it over to them. And maybe Patrick, do you want to get us started with an introduction?
Sure, absolutely. My name's Patrick Carpenter. Like Owen said, I'm a senior in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and I major in economics with a minor in faith, peace, and justice. And I'm originally from Wilmette, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago. Like Owen said, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to share some of our favorite traditions, which are some of our favorite things about being a student at BC. And one thing that I wanted to start off by telling you guys about was a tradition that happens pretty quickly right when you get on campus as a freshman, and that is the first year convocation. So, beginning of your freshman year is a whirlwind full of new people, a new place, a lot of different things. Convocation is a really cool event that happens early on in your freshman year that actually has kind of a couple different, traditions mixed into it. The first of which being a kind of procession of the entire freshman class throughout one of the most beautiful areas of our campus, which is Linden Lane leading up to Gasson Hall. If you've ever seen a picture of Boston College, it was probably a picture of Gasson Hall. And so everybody, during convocation in their freshman year dresses up in nice clothes, goes with everybody who lives on their freshman dorm hallway and processes down that beautiful walkway throughout campus. And this is a really cool opportunity for freshmen to kind of be inducted into the Boston College community officially. It's a really awesome photo op. Looking back as a senior on like the pictures that I took with all of my freshman year floor mates, it's kind of crazy to see how much, we've all grown throughout these 4 years. And another part of that convocation process that was able to be kept up this year virtually is the academic convocation speaker. So over the summer leading up to freshman year, all the freshmen are given a book to read and then the author of that book is the keynote speaker at the academic convocation. This year's keynote speaker was a pretty good one. Bruce Springsteen addressed the freshman class. So that was pretty cool to watch virtually. And that's something that happens every year. BC brings in a different speaker. Really good speaker to talk to all of the freshmen, the entire freshman class. And then one of the coolest parts about convocation is that it kind of gets tied up at the end of your senior year. You can make the connection in your head to the commencement ceremony when the seniors dress not in their, little freshman fancy clothes, but in their cap and gown, graduating, walking down the same pathway, Linden Lane, as one of their last days on campus as a BC student. So I'm still weird. It still feels weird to be called a senior. I couldn't get that through my head when you were giving the introduction, Owen, but to think that I'm closer to that tail end, commencement ceremony than I am to the convocation is pretty crazy. But that's definitely one of my favorite BC traditions, and I think a really special one to kind of kick off freshman year right away.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that, Patrick. Lizzy, do you want to share your introduction next?
Yes, I'm getting a little emotional thinking about Patrick's discussion of our final weeks of senior year, but that just shows how much I love BC. So hi everyone, I'm Lizzy Johnson. I'm also a senior and I'm in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences studying economics and international studies. And I'm originally from Rosemount, Minnesota. One of my favorite traditions at BC happens each spring in April on Patriots Day, which is also known as Marathon Monday. So if you aren't aware, the Boston Marathon is one of the biggest and most competitive marathons in the entire world. And part of the course runs right down Commonwealth Avenue, aka right by BC's campus. So everyone has a day of school off and we get up really early, get excited, and go out and cheer for the runners. And it's such a blast. It's so fun. I remember my freshman year, it was about 30 degrees that day, which is pretty chilly for April. And it was absolutely storming and cold and windy, but everyone was still out there cheering for runners. And it's just such a blast. I've been a runner most of my life, so that part of it is exciting for me to watch people accomplishing this huge goal within the sport of running, but it's also just such a amazing experience. A lot of the people who do it have fundraised thousands of dollars for different organizations. Usually several BC students run it each year, and it's just so much fun and such a great emotional day. This year it's obviously a little bit different, but I actually had one of my close friends run the marathon that was supposed to be in April, postponed to September, and then made online. And so she was continuing to do these 20-mile runs throughout the summer, which is just absolutely amazing. But she got to finish the run a couple weeks ago. She ran in honor of the campus school and her buddies there. The campus school is school on campus for students with severe disabilities, and it was just so beautiful to watch her run that. So I'm really happy that despite the circumstances, one of my favorite traditions got to continue this year, and I am so hoping that there'll be many more Marathon Mondays in the years to come.
Great. Thanks so much, Lizzy. Thanks for sharing that. Emma, will you introduce yourself next?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Lizzy. Marathon Monday also holds a very special place in my heart because I'm from the start of the marathon, the town where the Boston Marathon starts, called Hopkinton. So it's been something that's followed me from when I was a child up until now through at BC. So thanks for talking about that, Lizzy. So my name is Emma. I am also a senior here. I am in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences studying neuroscience with a minor in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development called Foundations in Education. And I'm also on the pre-med track here. So I'm really doing a lot with my time. And I'm from Hopkinton, Massachusetts, which, like I just touched on, is about 40 minutes away. So one of my favorite traditions here at BC has to be our Christmas tree lighting. So in probably early December, it normally happens, late November, early December, you come back to campus from Thanksgiving and there's always a big tree that's suddenly in the middle of our campus. And throughout the course of a day or two, it has a bunch of lights strung around it. But the Christmas tree lighting specifically happens at night. And normally, I think one of the reasons that it's one of my favorite traditions is that it normally happens in the midst of the final midterms, the beginning of finals, and it's generally a pretty stressful time around on campus with exams and papers. But the Christmas tree lighting happens every year, regardless of what's going on, and I've always made an effort to go every year. It's so much fun. So the tree does get lit, which is not the most exciting part. And then we have a group called the Campus Activities Board here on campus, and they organize a lot of activities throughout the city and on campus for students to attend. And a lot of the members of the Campus Activities Board dress up as elves, which is always funny to see. All of the professors bring their kids, so you finally get to see a little bit of the real life side of the professors with their families. What else? BC always brings in this massive ice sculpture that's normally of Gasson, which Patrick touched on earlier, the big famous building. And it's always pretty similar every year, but I'm in awe of it every single year. They have free hot chocolate, free food, and there's always a bunch of Christmas music playing. So I'm clearly getting excited thinking about it right now. But I think that the best part of it is that it's a great way for the students to come together and kind of take a break from studying. I think every single year that I've gone, so the past 3 years, I have come straight from the library, and luckily the Christmas tree lighting happens directly outside of where the library is. So it's an easy way to get outside, meet up with some friends, and take a break. I'm not sure what it will look like this year, but I'm certain that there will be a Christmas tree lighting, and I will be in attendance for sure.
That's great, Emma. Thanks. I can feel your excitement, and I think we all need a little bit of that joy and spirit right now. So thanks for sharing that. Annie, do you want to finish us off here?
Yeah, sure. One last time, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Annie Z. I am a senior as well in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. I also study economics, and I have a secondary major in computer science, and I'm on the pre-law track. And I'm originally from McLean, Virginia, which is just about 15 to 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. And the tradition that I wanted to talk about today was surrounding athletics on campus. So specifically the football games, which are one of my favorite activities on campus. I like them so much that even though I went abroad last fall, I came up for the first football game here at BC, came for a weekend, flew back down to Virginia, and then went abroad because it was just too important. I couldn't miss it. And I think, the entire football season is really exciting, but my absolute favorite game is one that we have every single year called the Red Bandana game. And I think it's my favorite because of the story that goes along with the Red Bandana game. So this game that we have every year celebrates one of our alumnus named Wells Crowther. And Wells was a lacrosse player here at BC, and he was known to always wear a red bandana around him when he was playing his games. He said it was his good luck charm, and that's what he was known for. So after Wells graduated from BC, he moved to New York City. He was actually also an econ major, and he was working in the World Trade Center at the time of the 9/11 attacks. And he unfortunately passed away in those attacks. And you know, I feel like following the weeks after those attacks, there were a lot of articles and newspapers writing about what happened. And Wells's mom happened to come across an article in the New York Times by a woman who was talking about her story, how she was saved by a man who carried her down the stairs, and she knew him as the man with the red bandana because he had put it around his face to prevent smoke inhalation. And she said that he carried her all the way down and then went back up to carry more people. And because of that one small detail, the red bandana, and the fact that it was in the South Tower, she knew that it was her son. And she was later able to reconnect with that woman, and they shared photographs, and it was in fact him. So I think, you know, that's obviously an amazing story, but the one huge reason why we really celebrate it every year at BC is because it ties in with one of our Jesuit values, which is men and women for others. That's a phrase that, like, if you come to BC, you'll hear all the time. It, like, starting from freshman year orientation, that phrase has been ingrained in my brain. And it's the idea that, you know, we are here to do more than just be students. We're here to think about how can we help the world. And I think Wells' story, he literally gave his life for other people, right? That's the best way to describe being a man for others. So every single year we have this football game in his honor, as well as a 5K run. And my favorite part of that, beyond celebrating Wells, is the way that our campus comes together. So we're located a little bit outside of Boston in a neighboring suburb called Chestnut Hill. And I know I babysit off campus in Chestnut Hill, and the parents of the kids I babysit have no connections to BC, didn't come here, but they attend the Red Bandana game every single year because they know about this tradition here at BC. And one of my roommates, she's from Dallas, her parents fly up for this game because they're alumni and they know the importance of it. So it's really, you know, the entire BC community, Chestnut Hill community coming together. And the fact that we celebrate this every year, it's one of my favorite things that happens on campus for sure.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that story. That's such an important story, and I think just really exemplifies, you know, who we are as a community and as students here at Boston College. So thanks, Annie. So thanks for those introductions. Now I think we'll dive into the Q&A portion of this. So if you all don't mind, I'm going to ask you some questions. I think you all signed up for this, right, and agreed to that. So I'll start to grill you with some questions now, and just, you know, tell us about traditions at BC. So, you know, let's start at the very beginning. Patrick, you talked a little bit about convocation here, but I think even before that begins, you know, that's a few days into campus, right when students step foot on campus, there's this ritual of move-in and welcome week that, you know, happens every year. So can you guys talk a little bit about you know, literally that first day on campus, move in, and those first couple of days with that welcome week, your first week on campus, and how the traditions really, you know, get going right away, and how they help you acclimate to the community here. Anyone want to start off?
I can start us off. I remember this so clearly because I was so scared. I remember we had woken up really, really early that day. Virginia's about like 9 hours or so with traffic from BC. So we literally gotten up at the crack of dawn and driven up here because I was like, there's no way I can ship all my stuff. That's too stressful. So I made my mom drive with me all the way to BC. And 9 hours later, we arrived at my dorm on Newton campus, which is a freshman only housing campus. It's about like a mile down the road from where we are on main campus. And I was so scared. I didn't know anyone. There was no one else from my school coming to BC. I didn't really know what to expect. And I remember my first impression was that there were all these kids who obviously went to BC in matching t-shirts, and they had these huge carts out, and they were just coming up to us and saying, hi, like, my name is so-and-so, like, I am a freshman, I'm a sophomore, junior, senior, and I would really help to move you in. And so they were part of what I later learned was like the welcome week crew, and their entire job was to help freshmen moved in. But I just remember feeling so comforted by the fact that the second I arrived on campus, there were people who were willing to talk to me, show me where things were, how to even unlock my dorm door. And they showed us, you know, how to get to main campus, you know, what we should be looking out for, how to set up our mini fridges and our doubles, things like that. So I think that was such a clear memory for me because of how it really relieved my anxiety right off the bat. And so, you know, I think we have a lot of wonderful traditions throughout Welcome Week, but just that one moment in the beginning where there's always this entire crew of BC students welcoming you, that is what I remember first.
That's great. Thanks, Annie. Anyone else have memories of those first couple days on campus?
Yeah, I can chip in on this one. You know, just echoing what Annie said, I think that the beginning of freshman year, especially those first few days that you come to campus, are such a singular experience. It's really like nothing else, especially if you have never moved away from home before or anything like that. So it is a big change for a lot of people, and it definitely was for me. But you know, looking back, there are a lot of traditions and programs and things like that that BC puts on to help that transition be a little bit easier. You know, a lot of that time during Welcome Week is spent getting to know the people who who's your roommates, and also the people who live on your floor. And for me, the people that I met, you know, in those icebreaker activities and group dinners and things from Welcome Week have ended up being some of my best friends actually at Boston College. I now, as a senior, I live in an apartment, a 6-person apartment, and 5 out of the 6 of us actually lived on the same floor freshman year and met each other, you know, right at the beginning of Welcome Week. One of the specific programs that I remember really enjoying, that's kind of a tradition right at the beginning of every year as part of Welcome Week, is something called Discover Boston. It's a trip for freshmen, just like a, you know, half-day trip, maybe 3 hours, led by a couple of upperclassmen with a group of 10 or 12 freshmen who sign up for it. And basically they take the T down into Boston to explore the city a little bit. For me, coming from the Midwest, not really, you know, having been to Boston before, it was a cool way to get to know the city a little bit, kind of get my bearings, and also get to meet some other freshmen and a couple of upperclassmen too while I was at it. A couple of my friends have signed up to come back to campus early to be leaders for that Discover Boston trip, which I think also shows how the upperclassmen like to kind of give back to the freshmen at the beginning of the year. I think many of us as freshmen benefited from guidance from our RAs and other upperclassmen that we met those early days in college through that kind of programming that, you know, we kind of want to pay it forward to give it back to the new freshmen. So there are a lot of really cool traditions during Welcome Week. And yeah, that was one that I really appreciated off the bat.
That's great, Patrick. Thanks. Anyone else, any other first year memories, or do you want me to move on? All right, so I have another question for you. So Annie, you touched a little bit upon an athletic tradition here at Boston College, and I think a lot of the traditions at BC definitely, you know, a lot of them center around athletics, but then there are a lot that don't necessarily center around athletics. I know sometimes those are some of the first that people think of, or some of the more visible ones on campus, but there's so much that happens here in, you know, other different facets of student life. Like, you know, I know there are a lot of arts traditions on campus. Can anyone talk about some of those other types of traditions that might happen on campus?
Definitely. I would like to start with kind of how you get involved in all of these clubs that Owen's mentioning in the first place, because that's definitely a big part of BC's social life. BC does not have sororities or fraternities, so a large way in which a lot of students will get involved and meet friends is through clubs and student involvement. So I would say this is probably one of the first traditions that I can really remember at BC is the student involvement fair. It happens probably during the first or second week of classes every fall and every spring. I think the fall one's a little bit more memorable in my mind because it's outdoors, and that's when a lot of people are really looking to start their involvement in various things. So you'll get a bunch of emails about it coming up. And basically how it works is every single club on campus, and I think there are over 180 or so, they come out and they each have their own table. And so we have this quad, which is kind of like a green area between 4 academic buildings, and the entire quad is covered with tables. Each one of these organizations gets one table, and normally there will be upperclassmen who are at the tables. And honestly, as a freshman, it's really overwhelming because there are, in non-COVID times, there are a ton of people who are going through the aisles, trying to figure out kind of which organizations they want to get involved with. A lot of times people end up grabbing flyers from like 20 organizations, which is not practical to be involved with here at BC, but it just kind of happens. And it's a great way to kind of dip your toes in the water without doing any full-on commitment right then. So the clubs of the presidents of clubs and the students who are already involved with it will come out and they'll kind of be yelling in your face saying like, hey, do you know how to play field hockey? And you're like, no. And they're like, all right, well, come join our club anyways. It's a really fun way to get involved. So I actually know a lot of people who have kind of discovered new interests of theirs through the involvement fair. They kind of just put their name down on a list without thinking anything would really come of it, and they ended up being really involved with it. I know one specific example I'm thinking of is one of my friends was not really interested in journalism or anything prior to coming to BC, but she ended up putting her name down for the Heights, which is one of our student-run newspapers, and now she's really interested in doing some sort of journalism after college. So it's a great way to kind of focus in on what you're already interested in and also find new interests. And I think it's probably one of the most memorable and one of my favorite things about every single fall here at BC.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, I would like to build on Emma's talk a little bit more about student organizations and some of my favorite parts about them and the traditions that are associated with it. So one thing that someone I saw in the chat asked about, like, do your clubs act like fraternities and sororities in other ways? Do they have formals or other events? And I think definitely it plays some of the similar roles to what Greek life would at other campuses. And something that I know people really like at some campuses with Greek life is bigs and littles. And though I'm not in any clubs that have like a specific version of that, one thing that's kind of similar that I've done in several of my clubs, such as a volunteer group I'm a part of called For Boston, are weekly coffee dates. And this is like by far one of my favorite traditions that also is sort of like more of a part of everyday life, if that makes sense, rather than like a big announced thing. But anyway, so every week I'll be paired with a different person in my group, and it's such a great way to get to know each other better and talk about how life's going, how classes are going. I think freshman year when I had first arrived at BC, I was definitely overwhelmed, and so the sort of practice of just getting to have a one-on-one conversation with someone and like be able to talk a little bit more like with a little bit more vulnerability and authenticity than like maybe my everyday like run-of-the-mill conversation has been huge for me. And now, like as a senior, I'm still involved in that same club, still doing coffee dates, about to start the first one next week. So I'm so excited to get back to that tradition and get to talk to some more new freshmen and sophomores in my group.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with things that Emma and Lizzy said. In terms of traditions based around organizations, like within the arts or performance, there's so many different kinds of things that are that happen, throughout the year here at BC, that are based around student-run organizations. I think all of us, know somebody, either have roommates or friends who are in a dance group or an a cappella group or a comedy group, or have their artwork in an art show or anything like that. Literally, every weekend at least, there's different kinds of performance shows going on around campus. And attending those shows that my friends and my roommates are in has been some of my favorite kind of yearly traditions at BC. Usually like those comedy groups and those a cappella groups have maybe like one big concert a semester for their specific group. And so for each of my friends who are in those different things, it's always a great tradition to see them work so hard to get their performance ready for that event at the end of the semester, and then go out there and perform for a big group of students. It's always really, really fun to see. In terms of dance groups, I think that is something that I think is a little bit unique to Boston College. I can't dance at all, but it seems like there are a lot of people on our campus who can, because there are so many really, really, really good dance groups. And one of the coolest traditions happens in the spring. It's called ALC Showdown, which is put on by our AHANA Leadership Council. AHANA is the acronym that stands for African American, Asian, Hispanic, and Native American plus students on campus. So that organization kind of puts on this showdown event, which encompasses many of the different dance groups on campus, all competing against one another. And it happens in Conti Forum, which is the basketball and hockey arena. So it's packed with all of BC students out there cheering for their favorite dance groups, and not just cheering for their favorite, but being impressed by every single one because they're all so good. It's a really cool event that kind of showcases so many different aspects of student life at BC. You know, the dance groups vary from Irish dance to hip hop to dance to, you know, a step dance team, multiple step dance teams. So it's a really, really cool event that is both for a good cause because the winning teams get to donate the sum of money to their charity of their choice, and also just a really cool event for the BC campus to come together, and definitely one of the premier examples of those kind of performance-based traditions happening on campus.
I just wanted to add to what Patrick said. I completely agree. I think the dance group, their shows are my favorite things on campus. I have a lot of friends who are dancers, so I always go to their shows anyways, but I'm always impressed no matter how many times I've seen them dance because I'm just like, how can you do that? And I think my favorite part of those shows is not just seeing them dance, but seeing all the BC students who come out to support them. And one of my fondest memories is it's kind of strange actually. It's right when we got a notice that we were getting shut down last spring, all these different clubs, you know, they couldn't do ALC Showdown, they couldn't have their, you know, final dance show. So everyone was scrambling to put something together to show us for the next 2 days before we got sent home. And I remember they actually did ALC Showdown on the grass in front of 2150, which is literally one of our dorms. So literally the front lawn of a dorm building. And it just spread through word of mouth, like, hey, come see our new showdown. All the dance groups are gonna come out. And I remember one of my roommates, she's in the tap group on campus called On Tap. They put on their whole costume, even though it was freezing because it was kind of like winter here still. And it was on the grass, so you couldn't even hear them tap, but it was still so fun and everyone was cheering so loudly. And the fact that, you know, this was such a surreal time where we had literally days left before getting sent home, but the entire campus came out to 2150. The crowds were huge. I remember I was actually living off campus, but pretty close to 2150, and we could hear them cheer from our off-campus apartment. So my favorite tradition surrounding dance and arts is not only seeing it, but seeing, you know, all the students come together to support it.
That's a great story, Annie. I think that is just so representative of, you know, what it means to be a BC community member. So thanks for sharing that. All right, so I'd like to pause for a moment. We've been naming a lot of like really specific traditions and going through them. And I'd like to talk a little bit about why we're having this conversation in general, and what traditions mean. You know, BC is a place that is rich with traditions. So, you know, what's the significance of that? Why do you think BC has so many traditions? And why do you think this idea of traditions sort of sets Boston College apart or makes it special? Anyone have any reflections on that?
I think that as a Jesuit university, something that's really important at BC is this idea of community and everyone coming together and being able to reflect on your experience at BC as we're doing kind of right now with kind of in a nostalgic way and kind of think back on it. And I think that's something that's really, really, really cool about the traditions at BC is that it really creates a sense of collective unity almost among alumni and among current students, and it gives prospective students like all of you who are tuning in right now something to look forward to. And I don't think that I can say the same about other schools. I have found that the alumni network at BC is extremely strong, and BC has a really unique community, and we all kind of have a shared sense of culture here on campus. And I think that the traditions really help to contribute to that. In terms of alumni, I have a few siblings who have gone here before me, and I think something that was really exciting for me and that's really fun for all of us is that although my brother is 12 years older than me and came here so long ago, we're able to kind of share these traditions and we're able to talk about those, and the four of us are able to all talk about them together because although none of us had any overlap during our time at BC, we are able to come together under this umbrella of all of the traditions we have and talk about the Red Bandana game and talk about the Christmas tree lighting and Marathon Monday. So it's been really special, and I think that that is what makes the traditions at BC so special and unique, is that it really creates this sense of BC culture that you're not going to find elsewhere.
Absolutely. I think Emma hit on a lot of really good points. I think those kind of pillars of BC being a community is something that I find myself coming back to a lot whenever I'm talking to like prospective students or just talking to my family about what it's like to be a student at BC. I think one of the coolest traditions, and this kind of gets at Owen's question about why we're talking about traditions at all. One of the, I guess you could say, stereotypes of BC students is that they have a lot of school spirit. And I think that that goes along with how passionate BC students are. I think that everybody who goes to BC is very passionate about what they're studying, what they're involved in, and about the university that they go to at BC. And that school, when I say school spirit, it doesn't just mean, putting on the school colors to go to the football games, even though that is a part of it. I think that we're talking about traditions because every BC student cares so much about this school that they want to work to make it a more inclusive place, a better place, a home for everybody. And I think that is really evident in the student body. Everybody is always striving to make BC a home for everybody who goes here. And I think that that just shows how passionate BC students are about attending this university and, enjoying its traditions, that they want to make it a better place and everything like that. So I think BC students just have a lot of love for the community because that community has also given a lot of love back to them. As I was saying, like at the beginning of freshman year, I think at least for me personally, right away when I stepped foot on campus, the sense of community coming from the upperclassmen, school professors, alumni, things like that, was really evident. And it's only become even more evident, over the 3 years that I've been a part of the BC community. So I think that everybody just has, after enjoying those traditions and even the specific traditions that we talked about, that kind of feeds into a tradition of giving back to the community and creates a really good cycle of that, once you've gone through your 4 years and graduated.
Yeah, I just want to really quickly add that I think BC students, there's a lot to care about on campus. We have over 300 student organizations. We have so many majors across the 4 schools. We have sports to watch and shows to watch and so many things to participate in. And whenever you go to one of those things, people are there. People are excited. I feel like in college, sometimes there's like at other schools or with other friends, I've seen like there's pressure to like do this or, be cool or do whatever. But at BC, there's these so many amazing activities that people will show up at and be excited about and be genuinely just there because they want to be there. And I think that's something that BC students have in common is just like being willing to get excited about things and like, whatever it is that they're passionate about, they're going to go to those things and make traditions out of it. And that's just a super special thing about BC and our community.
Great. Thanks for sharing those reflections. I appreciate it. I think it's good context for the conversation that we're having today as we talk about all these specific traditions. We've referred a couple times to Boston College being a Jesuit Catholic institution. So, are there any traditions or events that all students get excited about or look forward to that are sort of born out of the Jesuit traditions and Jesuit ideals here at BC?
Yeah, definitely. One that I can touch on specifically would be the Mass of the Holy Spirit. It happens on one of the first Thursdays of the semester, I believe. So this is it's kind of like the welcome Mass to BC. So I personally am not religious. I don't come from any religious affiliation. However, the Jesuit mission at BC is something that I've definitely still been able to be a part of and feel included in. And I think that one thing relating to that is that you don't have to be Catholic to go to these masses and really be able to take something away from it. So Mass of the Holy Spirit happens at noon on one of the first Thursdays of every year, and people come. I think it was virtual this year, but people will normally go to Conti Forum, which is where our basketball and hockey teams play. And it's a really, really beautiful Mass to be a part of, and something that I know a lot of students really look forward to in coming back to BC every year. And I know it was really special for a lot of my friends this year as being our last Mass of the Holy Spirit and kind of kicking off senior year in a special way.
Adding to that, I think one of my favorite traditions surrounding religion kind of at BC is a retreat that we have. So retreats are actually a really big part of, I would say, the Boston College experience. We have retreats for freshmen. One of them is called 48 Hours. We have retreats for women and for men and for people of different religions. And Kairos is something that I hadn't heard of until I came to BC, but I know it's also run at some Catholic high schools. So I signed up purely because as a freshman, I was talking to one of my friends who's a senior, and his name was Maddie, and he was a co-director of Kairos, and he talked it up so much, and it just sounded so interesting that I never gone on a retreat before, and I said, I just need to kind of see what this is. I'm not Catholic, so I was a little bit scared at first. I wasn't sure what was going to go on. They took us away on a bus to a retreat center, and there's this big secret surrounding Kairos. No one would tell me what it was. Someone said to bring a pineapple. It was very bizarre to me. And again, literally, I had no idea what it was about. And what I remember, though, is my experience once we got there. So it was kind of like this cute little cabin in the woods. It was very secluded, and they had all of these retreat leaders who were a lot of upperclassmen who'd done the retreat before themselves, and they had all prepared talks. So throughout our weekend, each of them would give one of their talks to everyone who was attending the retreat. And then afterwards, we would split off into our small groups and talk about their experiences and how we felt about them. And I think what I remember most about this retreat was how open and reflective everyone was. So we got there on a Friday afternoon, and by Friday night, that was the first time we met in our small groups. Everyone was already sharing their life stories. It was crazy. And I don't think that coming to BC, I was a very reflective person. I don't think that I've ever shared so much about myself to complete strangers than I did on that retreat. But it's how open and welcoming everyone is about talking about their experiences at BC, things that they've learned, how they've grown, and the whole theme of the retreat was really to love one another and to spread love. And there is a big Kairos secret, which I won't reveal in case any of you go on the retreat later, but it's based on the idea of we don't show our love for others enough, right? And so we talk about the religious aspects as well, but as someone who's not religious, it didn't make me feel uncomfortable to be on that retreat. There were definitely other people there who were not Catholic, who practice other religions, and there were Catholics, and everyone talked about their own separate experiences, and I think that made me feel more comfortable as an underclassman at a Catholic university, being able to have those discussions on that retreat. And I specifically remember the feeling coming back from that retreat on the bus. Everyone was happy and crying. It was really surreal. But coming back from retreat, they dropped us off at Gasson, which is that building we keep talking about, and all of our friends and some of our family and past Kairos leaders were all there to welcome us back. And again, that whole message of spreading love was so clear, and that's something that's so prominent here at BC that I think the retreats really kind of instill in us. So I love the retreats. I went on Kairos, which is my favorite, but I think a lot of the different retreats here all had that same message.
I'm so glad that you talked about retreats, Annie. One of my best experiences here at BC was another retreat called Halftime that has to do with vocational discernment. So definitely recommend that one if you end up coming to BC. I wanted to just quickly touch on religious traditions. If you are Catholic or are interested in being more involved with Catholic or Christian faith, there are tons of different options for that on campus as well. We have several different chapels with many different mass times and services. I think I've kind of tried all of them out at one point or another, trying to fit them into my schedule, but my personal favorite is the 10:15 mass on Sunday nights, and it's actually in a room that's above our cafeteria, so it's really central and easy for people to get to, and it's very casual. It's obviously late at night, so it's just a very chill, relaxing vibe. And believe it or not, the Jesuits don't have to be there at 10:15 p.m. So it shows how much they care about the students, that they're willing to stay up so late to be with us and always share a really special message. I remember the first time I went, I was so nervous because I was like, oh, I didn't shower this morning and I'm not done with my homework and this and that. And I showed up and everyone was so welcoming, and it was just such a great way to end the weekend, and has been one of my favorite traditions since.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely echo everything that everyone else has said. I think one of the challenging things answering this question as a BC student is that when you kind of think about it a little bit, it can be a little bit hard to differentiate what are traditions born from the Jesuit identity of BC and what aren't, because the Jesuit identity isn't just limited to specifically faith-based things, in my perspective. Well, a lot, when you go visit a Jesuit university or Jesuit high school, especially Boston College, something that you're going to hear over and over is the education of the whole person. It's kind of a core value of Jesuit education. And that goes beyond the classroom. It goes beyond religion or spirituality. It encompasses kind of all aspects of students' lives. And so one thing that comes to mind that isn't specifically faith-based or religion-based, but I still think fits really well in terms of like the Jesuit tradition, is another program specifically for freshmen. There's actually two dual programs. I was in the one called Freshman League, which is specifically for male-identifying freshman students. There's another program called Ascend for female-identifying freshman students. And basically that program puts you in a small group with other freshmen and pairs you up with some upperclassmen to kind of guide you through your second semester as a freshman. So once you've kind of found your footing on campus a little bit, you get this opportunity to maybe branch out, meet some new people, get some advice from upperclassmen as you're moving forward from your freshman to your sophomore year. And also it affords the opportunity to get off campus a little bit. My freshman league group, we went to a trampoline park and we went to a Red Sox game. And I bet you didn't think I was going to talk about Red Sox games when asked the question about Jesuit education, but I found a way to turn the conversation around to it. For me, that was a really cool part of my freshman year to not only be part of an academic community at BC, but be part of a human living community at BC, to find that group of friends and like-minded people. And I think that can also definitely fit under the umbrella of kind of the Jesuit identity and tradition of Boston College. And he talked about retreats. There's a freshman league retreat that I went on early on in my sophomore year, or the second semester of my freshman year. We went out to Cape Cod. It was February, but it was still amazing. Cape Cod is a pretty desolate place at that time of year, but it was still really fun experience to be part of that community and that specific tradition at BC.
Great. Those are great reflections, everyone, and that's a great connection, Patrick. Thanks for making that. So you're all seniors. Let's talk about senior year traditions. I know big one that everyone talks about is senior week, right? One of the last weeks that you're here. And a lot of people get excited about all the build up to that and all the events happening at senior week. Might look a little bit different this year, but what types of things do you look forward to in your senior year, those big senior week events at the end of this? What are you excited about to sort of cap off your time here at Boston College?
I think something that I'm really excited about is something that I see in pictures every year. So it's really just hyped it up a lot. And it's something that we call senior sunrise. So it's actually the night before graduation. Everyone stays up the entire night and until the sun rises, basically. Makes a lot of sense. And it makes you so tired in graduation and everyone's just kind of sick and unhappy and crying because, it's the end. But you always see these beautiful pictures of all the students, like either on the top floor of our ComAv garage, which is like 7 stories up. So you see this beautiful view, or our school is located right next to a reservoir. So people will often go out by the res and watch the sun rise over the water, which is so beautiful. And it's really the chance for seniors to have one last night all together. And I know this makes me especially sad because all of my roommates are from out of state like I am, and we're actually all going to different places after graduation in different cities. So I'm already upset about it. It's fine. But it's that fact that we have one last night all together, and it's everyone that we've seen since freshman year coming together one last time. And it's something that is so prominent on social media too. So I've seen this happen since freshman year, and it's just like one final goodbye. So I think the fact that every single year this is a tradition within the senior class where you'll just stay up all night long is something that's really special to me. I think it goes back to the idea of our school is so community-based and we're so close, to the fact that over 90% of seniors will live on campus senior year to be together. It all just ties in together like that. So senior sunrise, I'd say, is my favorite senior week tradition.
Another one that I'm definitely looking forward to is called the Commencement Ball. I'm not sure exactly where in senior week that it falls, because I have tried not to think about senior week too much in my actual role in it, but I do know that it is sometime close to commencement, which makes sense. And it's downtown in Boston, and everyone gets dressed up all nice in dresses, and I think the boys might wear suits, but a lot of people will go to the Boston Common prior to this dance and take pictures with their friends. And like I mentioned, some of my siblings have gone here, and those are some of the most beautiful pictures that I have seen from senior week. And I know we talked about convocation earlier, and comparing the pictures from convocation to commencement ball and to graduation, I know is a really special thing to do, to just kind of see the growth that people have gone through, and to see who your friends still are, who you maybe lost touch with a little bit that you want to reconnect with. And it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to, but not trying to push forward any sooner than it's going to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like senior week, and when we say senior week is basically a week of time in between like the end of finals and then commencement. So when everybody else is gone from campus, all the underclassmen have, moved back home or wherever they're going to go for the summer, and it's basically just seniors left. I think senior week is kind of 1 week that is kind of representative of all of senior year, in that everybody is trying to fit in as much time with their friends and as many different activities as they can. Even this year as seniors, when obviously there isn't as many things we can do in person as there normally would be. Me personally and my friends were trying to fit in as much quality time with each other as we can, as many, involvements with different clubs, things like that. Whatever we can do right now to make the most out of our, last few months here at BC, we're just trying to squeeze that out of the time that we have left. And I think, Annie mentioned the fact that so many seniors move back onto campus. Pretty much all seniors move back onto campus, to live in the on-campus apartments for their last year. I think that's really representative of the on-campus community at BC, the fact that everybody wants to come back and doesn't necessarily want to live in an apartment, off campus for their last year of college, and just wants to come back to be part of this on-campus community. Really speaks to as we were talking about earlier, the passion that students feel and the joy that they get out of being part of that campus community. So I think senior week and all the traditions that go into it are kind of exemplary of, like I said, all of senior year, just trying to get that one last hurrah, as a BC student, and making the most out of it as long as you can.
Everyone did an awesome job talking about senior week, and I don't even want to think about it too much more. So I will just super quickly add, I think it's even just special the fact that we literally will stay as long as we can on, I think it's, maybe Tuesday that we move out. Everyone's moving out at the last possible second, because we all just want to spend as much time at this really special place with really special people. And I just don't think that there's a lot of places that you can say that about. So we love BC, and we are going to make the very most out of it that we can for this last year.
Great. Well, I think that's a fantastic note to wrap up on, Lizzy. Thanks for that. And thanks to all of our student panelists tonight. We're so grateful that you took time to talk about Boston College and to share that with these prospective students and these prospective families. Your joy and enthusiasm for BC is just contagious. It's the reason why I get excited to get up and go to work every day. So I'm grateful for you taking the time tonight to share these stories. To our prospective students and families out there, thank you so much for taking the time to learn a little bit more about Boston College. I hope that this was helpful. like I said, in what we know is certainly a challenging college search process that you're currently undergoing. So we hope that it was helpful in teaching a little bit more about Boston College and allowing you to understand, what type of students are here at Boston College and what they're doing during their 4 years here. So we're grateful that you tuned in tonight. We have, a good number more of these sessions happening, over the next couple of weeks. These are our open house sessions. And then we also are running, virtual tours of campus, standard information sessions, conversations with students. So certainly feel free to tune in and check out all the other great virtual options that we have. You can do that just by visiting the webpage bc.edu/visit. So I'd encourage you to check out some more and hear some more themes and some different students talk about their experiences at BC. But thanks again for tuning in. I hope that you and your loved ones are all safe and all healthy, and we wish you the very best of luck in your college search processes. Take care. Bye
Thanks,
now.
again.